The American electorate, in its infinite wisdom, has decided to hand over total control of all branches of government to a fascist who is running a fascist party. So we have a lot to figure out here. Also, we have seen with Donald's nominations to key cabinet positions that this is as bad as many of us have been trying to tell people for years now. I do not think being shocked is the appropriate response anymore. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Nerd Avengers. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we jump in, just a quick reminder, please subscribe to our channel. You may have noticed, but there seems to be a void, a gaping void at the heart of media, and we aim to fill it because we are in it. We are right in it. So I'd like to introduce the nerds who are with us today. First, we have Waj Ali, who's editor of The Left Hook over at Substack and co-host of Democracy at Mary Trump Media. Also, Brian Karam, White House reporter, best-selling author and host of Reverse Shot, and Norm Ornstein, emeritus scholar at AEI and co-host of the Words Matter podcast with the awesome Kavita Patel. Hi, everybody. It's been a week now. Wait, no, that's not true. It's been 7,000 millennia since the election last week. It's actually been 9 days, I guess. And things are happening quickly. And I sort of feel, Norm, I want to start with you that remember for a long time now, we've been saying it's not surprising, but shocking. I don't think we can be shocked anymore either. So I wanted to start with the John Thune. I don't think it's the most important thing that's going on of the many important things that's going on. However, Rick Scott was Donald's pick, the MAGA-iest of the MAGA people. And he was eliminated in the first round of voting. I think he got 13 votes out of the whatever number it is. And Thune is the least bad of three bad picks. So we find ourselves in this fascinating situation where our only hope between maybe a somewhat functioning nomination process and total Armageddon is a Republican majority in the Senate. And I wanted to get your sense of what Thune may or may not mean for that process.
First, Mary, nobody should take the choice of Thune as a sign that Senate Republicans are rebelling against Donald Trump or have any level of backbone, because it was a secret ballot vote. And unfortunately, it's a sign of something else. And you can see this with the reaction of some senators to the most outrageous picks that Trump has made. Bill Hagerty saying of Matt Gaetz, I don't see any reason why we can't go forward. Marco Rubio, not surprisingly, saying, I know Matt Gaetz, he's terrific. And Roger Wicker, who is chair of the Armed Services Committee, basically whitewashing Pete Hegseth, who is a catastrophe. Yeah. So this is a cult, and they're almost all members of the cult. And what I fear is if we actually do have a confirmation process, if we do have hearings, and we get votes for some of these people on the floor, that there will be two dissenters. They will be Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski because it's the same secret deal, handshake deal they worked out with Mitch McConnell, which is you vote however you need to as long as it won't make a difference. And if you noticed with Collins, when it was going to make a difference with Brett Kavanaugh, what did she do? Now, I'm going to return to this, Mary, but I think we have weapons here for the next almost 70 days. And we need both Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer to put on their big boy pants. And for the Senate, and it's a stretch, I admit, even stretchy big boy pants. Here's what I want out of the Senate. Democrats have the majority. Do your own pre-confirmation hearings. Do a hearing in the Judiciary Committee, Dick Durbin chairing, on Matt Gaetz. Go into as much as you can why he is the least qualified, most outrageous pick for Attorney General that one could imagine. Do a hearing in the Armed Services Committee on Pete Hegseth. He won't show up. These people are not going to show up. Fine. Get others to interpret the tattoos on Pete Hegseth, which are about Christian nationalists and white nationalists. Go into how he got drummed out of the military for his extremist views. Go into what those views are. Now, you're not going to have Homan or Miller having confirmation hearings. Fine. Have the Homeland Security Commission go into the child separation, what Homan has been saying. Talk about what it would cost to do this and how they're going to go about doing their deportations. You can do confirmation hearings. Go into Kristi Noem, who has zero experience with Homeland Security and is a corrupt governor who used her office to further her own family's finances and ambitions. Outline all of this stuff. Do a hearing in the Governmental Affairs Committee on Schedule F and what it would mean. And at the same time that you obviously have to jam through as many judicial confirmations as there are seats available. And if Republicans try and use the blue slip to block them, you know that they will eliminate it in a nanosecond when they're in the majority. There's no handshake deal there. Go ahead and fill those posts so that they can't fill them with what would be Trump loyalists. And for Joe Biden, beyond hitting the pedal to the metal on Ukraine, giving them every bit of money and arms that he can, freeing up the $30 billion in Russian frozen assets and convincing our allies to give up the other $270 billion. But there's something else we ought to think about, which is we know that there are going to be these punitive prosecutions, whether it's Gates or somebody else at the Justice Department. All right, you use your pardon power. Pardon people who you know will be prosecuted unjustly. And if you're going to get criticized for that, so be it. We are in an existential fight for the future, and there will be a lot of casualties along the way. Now is the time to do what you can to minimize those casualties.
Yeah, Norm, you anticipated a conversation I want to have, which is exactly that, what Dems should be doing. But I want to take a step back for a second and just flesh out the context for that. One context for that conversation is, of course, that the Republicans have a trifecta, which is just, I mean, congratulations, America. The damage is done. I think a lot of people are like, the world's laughing at us. No, they're going to be turning their back on us, as they should. And I think getting back to some of these cabinet nomination, and remember, folks, these are nominations. Everybody's acting like they're appointments. The executive branch positions, Stephen Miller, et cetera, Tom Homan, are. But for cabinet positions, these are nominations. Let's keep reminding people of that so that they understand that there is a process that needs to be gone through. And if it's not, if these are recess appointments, or if Donald sends both houses of Congress into whatever that word is that I can't think of. It starts with an A. I don't. He sends them on vacation. I can't think of the word. There's article section 3 of Article 2. He can send the Congress away so that he can then go ahead and. I'm being very articulate. Can you tell? I usually know this stuff, but I can't think of the word. So anyway, there are end runs that he can make if the Republican Senate allows him, and then that sends up even more alarm bells. However, they're nominations, they're not appointments. There is a process. So I just quickly want to play a couple of Thune clips and see what we make of them and just how many tons of salt we should be buying.
The Mitch McConnell. Leader Thune, you've said that recess appointments are on the table. That's a key demand from President-elect Donald Trump. Will you move forward with that?
Well, what we're going to do is make sure that we are processing his nominees in a way that gets them into those positions so they can implement his agenda. How that happens remains to be seen. You know, obviously, we want to make sure our committees have confirmation hearings like they typically do, and that these nominees reported out to the floor. But I've said this, and I mean it, that you know, we expect a level of cooperation from the Democrats to work with us to get these folks installed. And obviously, we're going to look at explore all options to make sure that they get moved and that they get moved quickly.
By the way, the answer to that question was no. Here's a very quick clip about the filibuster.
Will the legislative filibuster remain unchanged under your tenure?
Yes.
Okay, so he got that one right, Waj. He had 2 yes and no questions. The first one, he obfuscated, he meandered, he muddied the waters. The second one, I think he lied, but at least it was the right answer. What's your sense of where we are with this Thune pick? And, you know, we can dive a little bit more into obviously every single cabinet nomination is terrible, but the latest 3 are just they're designed to demoralize, horrify, and blackmail, I think, Senate Republicans.
So there's a lot to talk about. I'll try to condense it as much as possible with the time that we have. Why is anyone shocked or surprised? I've been alive for the past 9 years. I survived the Trump presidency. I haven't memory hold myself. I haven't done the Men in Black zapper. This is going exactly as we thought it would. It's only been a week since the election. He isn't even president. Chaos, dissension. What we just found out, according to reporting, is that the some of these picks that are floating about, such as Matt Gaetz on as Attorney General, was decided on the Trump plane between him and Boris Epstein, whereas Susan Wiles, his campaign manager, who now will be the first white chief of staff, was not made aware, even though she was on the plane.
What is she, the new Ivanka? Like, what is this? The moderator?
She was on the opposite side of the plane. Epstein and Trump kind of came up with this at the last second to protect Matt Gaetz and make him AG, to attack all, you know, the FBI and the deep state. Matt Gaetz, who is being investigated for sex trafficking and sex crimes with a minor, will now head be the AG and be the top cop, and then go
potentially,
and then go after law enforcement agencies who go after sex traffickers. And the person who has appointed him is a person who was held liable for sexually assaulting a woman. I just want people to sit with that, because people normalize this and they shouldn't. Thune is what I call the nice, relatable, vanilla mayonnaise face of MAGA fascism, right? At the end of the day, all of them are going to bend a knee. Another piece of reporting just came out today that Republicans are, quote, exhausted and don't feel like they have the energy to push back against Trump. So what they're going to do, as Norm said, is, do you have the votes? Can I protect myself? Great. Do what you want. And this goes to even Gaetz. So we're talking about Gaetz. They're saying, so fascism not only overwhelms and distracts and exhausts those who resist, it overwhelms the reeks themselves. And the reeks themselves realize that Donald Trump is their God King. He is their orange lizard boss. They have the mandate, which we should talk about. It's not really a mandate, folks. He lost.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Kamala Harris lost by probably less than 2 points. For perspective, Joe Biden beat Donald by 4.4 points in 2020.
Well, actually, I want to play this clip for exactly that. That speaks exactly to that point.
There you go.
Okay. So it is a 1.4% margin.
There you go.
Donald, once again, incapable of breaking 15%, sorry, 50%. The tipping point state, which I will never understand given the hundreds of thousands of Puerto Rican voters there. I mean, I guess I do understand it, but it's upsetting. Is 1.9%. As far as I remember, also the turnout was lower than 2020, but not by 15 or 20 million votes, which is what we were hearing at the very beginning of things. This is not a mandate. This is not an overwhelming margin of victory. And I think, Waj, I'm really glad you brought it up because, one, yes, does it matter in the term in the mechanics of how things are going to proceed? No, no. Unfortunately, they won. I still consider him, and always will consider him, an illegitimate president because he should never have been allowed to be the nominee. Thanks, Merrick Garland. But here we are. However, the idea that this is some overwhelming shift in his favor is absolutely absurd. And if we buy into that, we're just doing their work for them.
I absolutely agree. And, I know in the interest of time, there's so much I want to talk about. I want to give it to Brian, but I think it's very important to realize, number one, he won, sure, barely. That gives you some hope. There were people who switched from Donald to Biden to Donald again. And a lot of people didn't show up. If Democrats play their cards right, and they have to have new leadership, new vision. We could talk about that later. They can win over these people, especially as Trump F's up, which he will. And hopefully we have elections left. The second part is, don't be shocked or surprised by what's about to happen. We have warned you for several years on the show. We have taken Trump literally and seriously. And I want to mention, Mary, because you talked about it, some of these picks. I've been keeping a list. All right. I'm going to do it really quick. Stephen Miller, white nationalist, immigration hardliner, deputy chief of staff. Thomas Homan, border czar, wants to deport citizen children with their undocumented parents. When Trump voters realize that Abuela is going to go, I think they're going to be like, wait a second, why is grandma going? We just wanted safety. What Norm said about Peter Hegseth was very important. He is not just a Fox News host, a pretty face. He is a hard right Christian nationalist extremist.
With the tattoos to prove it.
Read his book. In his book, he says, I'm too extreme for the military. He wants a civil war. He considers Democrats and liberals the enemy, and he supports paramilitary forces. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, white Christian nationalist who doesn't believe in occupation, settlers, wants all of it to go to Israel. Marco Rubio, neocon hawk, by the way. Elise Stefanik, another neocon hawk who promoted the replacement theory, now the UN ambassador. Lee Zeldin, head of the EPA, who doesn't believe in climate change. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, dog killer, hide your dogs. And then the last two, which I think you're talking about, the two that really shock people. We've talked about Matt Gaetz, and we will, so I'll skip that for a second. Tulsi Gabbard, head of the DNI, Director of National Intelligence. Yesterday on Russian TV, they openly mocked her and called her a Russian asset and a girlfriend. What they're saying right now is in order to protect U.S. intelligence, the other branches have to just shut down to protect our intelligence because they believe Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset, both willing or unwitting. And furthermore, if our intelligence agencies, the people who run it, are actually patriots and shut down, that is a decapitation strike of our intelligence forces, and our enemies win overnight. Something we think about it. I know Gates has overwhelmed us, but that pick is also, my God. Sorry for that. Guys.
Let's take a look at this. Ukraine skeptic. Oh, I thought this was a video. It's a lovely screenshot. Ukraine skeptic. I think that's putting it mildly. She is a Putin asset, and remember, this is somebody who met with Bashar al. What is it with me not remembering Syria guy?
Assad.
Yes, Assad. Thank you. Who is somebody who's committed multiple crimes against humanity, and she's sympathetic to him. She's also deeply, deeply unqualified. I wish I had the list of agencies DNI oversees. It is overwhelming. And she will have access to all of the most highly sensitive, classified information from every single intelligence agency, including the stuff Donald stole and still has in Mar-a-Lago. So, Brian, I mean, I think I want to take a step back for a second because it is overwhelming, even for those of us who aren't shocked. And as we said, it's shocking, but why should we be shocked? Like, this is exactly what we've been saying was going to happen. And, we've got a lot of people Googling, can I change my vote? Well, no, you can't. Actually, this is why we need a Department of Education and we need to make it better. But, who's going to be in charge of it? Lauren Boebert, if it even survives. So,
there's a joke there I'm not going to make.
Yeah, don't make it. So some of these picks are obviously, they're very Donald, just like shoving it down our throats. He won, we lost, and he's going to make us suffer for it in ways petty and serious. But then there's also this concern that he's picked these people who are so extreme. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is a theory that enough Republicans won't be able to cross the line and say, oh yeah, Gates, the sex trafficker, allegedly is going to be AG, right? So they don't confirm Gabbard, they don't confirm Gates, and then Donald gets somebody who is almost as bad, just like more palatable. And then that person gets in because, the Senate Republicans have stood up and showed their spine, and now they're going to lay over. Or, of course, everybody's just going to get a free pass. As Norm said, you get the Murkowski and the Susan Collins being very, very concerned and not being able to bring themselves. But now, well, we don't actually know what the margin is yet, but it doesn't matter. If it's 50-50, Vance will, greenlight everything. So, Brian, it's as bad as we believed it would be. So what is the strategy here? Norm laid out some things, but
I have nothing to add to this conversation. Norm nailed it, and Waj unraveled it very well. And you
all right. Well, thanks for being here. We'll see you later.
Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me, man. Just one more thing. I know you said you didn't murder but I just have one. The last thing.
That's a Columbo reference for the children who think
that was Peter Falk.
Thought that Brian was having a stroke. That's a Columbo reference.
Just one more thing. I think we've all kind of missed the point about these appointments, and it is meant to terrorize. It is meant to shock you, but it's also meant to do probably the most important thing. Donald Trump, when he first came into the White House in 2016, had absolutely no clue what he was doing, and he did try to listen to longtime Republicans and traditional Republicans when he appointed people to different posts. He's under no such illusion this time, and he doesn't really give a shit. He's appointing people that will bow down to him. So
he also still doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, that's
just to be clear.
But what he does know is how to get people who are subservient to him in those posts. And there is a very good reason why he's doing this, and we keep missing it. And I want to refer to Jeff Toobin, who I still don't know why I have to watch that SOB on TV. He should not be there. But he was talking about the crypto department that Donald Trump, and I mean that totally with tongue in cheek, with Ramaswamy and Musk. And they're going to, I'm going to put aside for the second that he appointed two people to head up a department of efficiency. But let's go on. That they'll become bored because there's too many roadblocks into reforming the federal government. They won't be able to slash like they want. And that's complete BS. Here is the point of the appointments. Here is the point of what Donald Trump is doing. The Supreme Court killed our democracy. They gave him unlimited, undying immunity for any official action that they sanction. So these people are in place to give Donald Trump the voice that he wants. So when he says, no, I'm taking this action, they will back him up. They won't fight him. And the Supreme Court will then bow down to him. This is the goal. This is as bad as it gets. This is why democracy is dead. All the rest of it is blue smoke and freaking mirrors. Donald Trump is putting people in as head of departments. And look, Do we really think that there's going to be any fight over these appointments? Who will be in charge of the Senate and the House? Unless the Democrats get a spine and do what Norm suggests, and I will give you kudos for that, and I don't think they will, but if they do, then that's the only way of stopping what is about to come. And if you don't understand how bad it is, wait until the first 100 days of the Donald Trump administration are over with. These people in place, and he will begin jailing people that he doesn't want. And our reporting staff, the White House press corps, is the first that will fall. They have already talked about getting rid of, first of all, the White House Correspondents Association, just by agreement and tradition over the years, are the ones who assign the seats in the White House press briefing room. Donald Trump won't allow that anymore. By the way, Donald Trump tried to take my press pass and Jim Acosta's press pass. He was stopped by the federal courts. They didn't get it to the Supreme Court. They gave up. Now they have a Supreme Court that favors them. And what did Donald Trump do on the campaign trail this time? He refused to allow reporters to cover him that weren't fine with him and didn't support him. So that's where you're headed. It's going to start with a press corps. You're going to see only favorable reporters in the White House press briefing room asking questions. Donald Trump will appear to be the man of the people. I got pissed off at what was said by a former press officer from the former Trump White House who said, Brian, you got it. We just like to fight, because I was complaining about the lack of communication with the Biden administration. And I said, no, that's not what it was all about. It wasn't all about fun and games and fighting. It was about you all trying to squelch the free speech of the United States and to run over our democratic norms. And he just, it is a presidency. So this is where you're headed, folks. It's not going to get better. It's going to get far worse. And if you don't stand up and do it, and bottom line, I'm tired of all this equivocating and all this hand-wringing about what happened. You didn't vote. 66% of the people voted in the last election. You didn't get those numbers this time. And that's still a far cry from the 70% that some industrialized democratic nations get when they hold elections. We don't vote. And if you don't vote, you get screwed. And if you don't vote, a statistical minority continuously elects the president of the United States. These 75 million people who voted for Donald Trump are a mere fourth or less of the total population of the United States, and they have decided who is going to be our leader. And the one thing that the Republicans are damn good at, James Carville pointed out years ago, he doesn't like them, but he loves their work ethic. They work, they vote. We wring hands, and the Democrats eat their own. The Republicans are talking about eating dogs and cats. Meanwhile, the Democrats are eating their own. What the hell?
Yeah, listen, I mean, you're right. 87 million eligible voters did not think it was worth their time to show up. There are all sorts of reasons for that. Some of them structural, some of them indifferent, some of them having to do with the fact that we do not teach civics in this country in a way that makes it meaningful to people's everyday lives. Yes, I am on Blue Sky, for those of you asking. But I'm staying on Twitter. I'm not ceding any ground. But Norm, I do want to bring it back to what can be done in the meantime. I share Brian's frustration and yours and Waj's, of course, but because I do not understand how we can be sitting here listening to Democratic leaders pretending that this is just business as usual. President Biden in the Oval Office last week saying we're going to be okay. Chuck Schumer saying, hey, last time the losing team made a fuss about it, but we're not going to do that because the election was just fine. Well, okay. I mean, I guess if we were talking about as horrible as it would be, President J.D. Vance or President Ron DeSantis, who didn't incite an insurrection. Well, yeah, I think they're both, seditionists. So for some non-seditionist Republican who won, who wasn't an adjudicated rapist and convicted felon, and who hadn't stolen government documents and insider. Okay, I guess we could say that it's very important that we continue to go by the traditions and the rules and a peaceful transfer of power. But like, why go out of our way to normalize this stuff? Like, President Biden's having Donald in the Oval Office horrified me. Shaking his hand horrified me. We have to play hardball, and I completely agree with you, Norm, that it's about some of it's just process. Keep getting judges in, but it's also about information. As you said, like, where are the hearings? Where are people starting? We've got to be playing hardball and make it clear. Like, you can't say during an election season, this guy's a fascist and an authoritarian and he's going to destroy American democracy, but I guess he won, so everything's fine now, and we're just going to pretend, or we're going to act like everything's just fine. How do we get Democrats to understand that there is a lot that can be done in the next 2 months? Otherwise, they are just taking us out at the knees.
And, Democrats in the Senate especially have been a continuing disappointment all along the way. This is the acid test right now. A couple of things I wanted to say, Mary. One is a tiny glimmer of good news. The Senate today is supposed to vote on a 5-year term for the head of the Office of Government Ethics. And it happens to be a good guy. And there's one place in particular that I'm going to find interesting. I don't think that Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy have any idea that if they move into these roles, they have to divest themselves of their business interests that are intertwined. So, but will they? Well, that's the Office of Government Ethics will demand it, and then it will go to the courts. And of course, they're going to try and resist. But we could, create some, I can't call it mischief because it's pushing them to do what's legal and ethical here.
Right.
But if we have somebody in that office who's actually going to do the job, then all of these so-called czars, and especially if he tries to bring in more of these billionaires into these posts, are going to have some trouble. I want to return to something that Waj said, which is really important, which is about the intelligence community. It is very likely, we don't have definitive proof, that when Donald was president, he shared information with Putin that got many of our assets in Russia killed. They disappeared. We don't know what happened to them, but we do. If I were Joe Biden again, if I were people in the embedded in the intelligence community who are patriots, I would move heaven and earth to make sure that anybody who has helped us in Saudi Arabia, in Russia, in Turkey, in any of these countries that are our adversaries, to get them out of there because they'll be killed otherwise. At the same time, there's another really important part of this, which is intelligence is not just what we do. It's the constant sharing of tips and information that comes from our friends and allies. We share with them, they share with us. There is zero reason to believe that any of our allies will share anything of significance with us. We haven't mentioned John Ratcliffe, who is horrible as well, who served in the first term and tried to eviscerate the intelligence community, who's moving into the CIA. And there are rumors, and you could in the past have dismissed this as ridiculous, Kash Patel at the FBI. And it's not just that they won't share with us stuff that would affect our foreign policy. They're not going to share with us anything that might implicate their sources and methods that might be a terrorist attack on us. Yep. We are going to be so vulnerable. Putin is dancing about
and isolated.
And the terrorist groups out there are thrilled to death because we are blinding ourselves to those threats. If you talk to anybody who's served in the White House before, presidents coming in will tell you that all of a sudden they're given these intelligence briefings. And the intelligence briefings and every day are often about the 20 plots against us that were quashed.
Yep.
And people have no idea, those who have not served in any of these offices before, of the threats around the globe that affect America and America's interests. We are eviscerating those. Now, I should also mention, Waj has been at the cutting edge of this. To look at this pathetic letter coming from the mayor of Dearborn and these other Muslim American leaders who caved into Trump, now plaintively saying, well, are you going to follow up on your pledge? And what do we know about what's happened? You know, Mike Huckabee, as you said, going to Israel, the idea that an evangelical who's basically, they all love Israel so that they can keep it whole until the Messiah comes down and Jews are all sent to hell.
The rapture, yes,
The rapture.
doesn't include Jews.
But it's also, as soon as we got word that Trump had won, Smotrich says, okay, now we can annex the West Bank.
Mhm.
We know Bibi is sending over a thug and settler acolyte to be the ambassador here. The worst things are going to happen. And people were willing dupes in this. They would not listen when Waj and others told them what the consequences would be of their behavior. They're hissy fits.
I spoke to a group of Arab Americans in Detroit a week before the election, and I had to listen to, I mean, at least 30 minutes of this as I told them what was up, and they wouldn't listen. This is not, they were so focused. And I said, do you really think that Donald Trump will be any better for the cause with those in Gaza than Biden has been? And they said, well, Donald Trump came and spoke to us. And Wise, you can speak to that far better than I, but I was there when it happened. And I can tell you, they just liked being within the bubble. They just wanted to be named. And so they ceded it, even though they knew what it was. They ceded their independence because Donald Trump shook hands with them. And that, to me, is the most vehemently ugly decision that you can make when it comes to politics. And it is a microcosm of everything wrong with those who support Donald. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Wash.
So I've been traveling last week. I've met many Muslim American people. I went to 3 major Muslim American events with over 400 people. And it's been fascinating to me that it's a microcosm of the major trends that have come out in the election, right? Most people, when given the correct facts about crime, immigration, the border, inflation, overwhelmingly went Harris. Those with incorrect facts went Trump. When Harris's policies were blindly shown to Trump supporters, they overwhelmingly said, yes, I like this. Disinformation, lack of good information, bad facts. I mean, we all laugh about it. I cannot tell you, folks, how many smart, informed, intelligent people who voted Democrat, even with their nose held, kind of said, but I heard this and I heard that. Like smart people who didn't know about tariffs. But you know, Candace Owens is terrible, but she said this one point. One person said, Charlie Kirk is terrible, but he said this one point. So the right-wing domination of our information ecosystem has misled so many people, which is why, if I may, before I talk about, you know, Muslims and Latinos and a few others, please subscribe, please like to Mary. A few of you, 1 or 2 of you gave money. This is the only way we could do a counter. Unless we do a counter to right-wing disinformation, this is going to keep happening. So for those who are watching, every like, every subscribe, every dollar that you send, anything that helps us will be a long-term 4-year counter to the right-wing disinformation network and the brosphere, which is one of 3 major factors that tilted this election. The other 2 factors, one of them that's not being talked about, why, I don't know, racism and misogyny. People just do not want to talk about it anymore. And the other,
it was woke. It was woke.
Yeah. Well, why? It wasn't woke. She actually, you know, I criticized.
I'm kidding. I'm being totally sarcastic. Yeah. That's what Democrats are saying, for God's sake.
He literally said, I have a gun.
Yeah, that's BS.
I'm more tough on crime than him. I'm more tough on the border. Let me bear hug Liz Cheney and dropkick, you know, Ilhan Omar, who was a progressive voting for me. Anyway, and the first major factor that people aren't talking about is nearly every single incumbent party around the world, folks, lost. That has not happened in more than 140 years. Now, all that being said, it explains why I call them chickens for Colonel Sanders. Some Muslims, some Arabs, some women, some Latinos, some Black folks. If you have seen the past week, what have been the trends? Tariffs, right? Has been Googling. Can I change my vote? They had a Latino for Trump a couple of days ago on CNN. Just amazing. Wearing that stupid ass hat with his blonde hair, saying, oh, he's not going to deport the good ones. That would be unfair. Muslims and Arabs. I cannot tell you how much hate I've gotten, Mary. Yesterday I got these WhatsApp messages because I did a very nice version of I told you so, but a very nice version. They're like, you have betrayed us. How can you put your thumb in our eye? Our families are dying, right? The emotion is real, folks. The rage is righteous. Like, their family members are dying. The Gaza war was a crisis. I think Biden messed up. I kept trying to steer them in the right direction. Not because I wanted to hurt them, because I knew what this would come to it. And the margin of error is so small, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I digress. You guys know me. I have said, despite all this, you got to vote for Harris. Despite all this, you have to vote for Harris. And now those folks, Mary, are saying, but I thought you would stop Netanyahu. And it reminds me of 2000, when some Muslims, not all Muslims, two religious groups, folks, that majority went for Harris. Jews, Muslims, when it's all said and done. 60% of Muslims, 72, 75% of Jews. Even a majority of Latinos, even though Latino men went for it. But he sliced enough, Mary, off of lies, machismo, disinformation, fake promises. And let's be honest, within our communities, a lot of people said, I don't want to vote for a Black woman. And now, I hate to say this because this is going to affect our communities. Palestinians are going to get destroyed. I mean, the chaos that will happen to Palestinians right now and the region, with Mike Huckabee there and Netanyahu given the green light by Donald Trump to say finish the job. I mean, the chaos is going to be just so much. But I also want to say this, Mary, and I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. I'm getting so much heat from my communities, and that includes American communities. What do you say to a people who voluntarily choose to destroy themselves, Mary? Me, Norm, you, Brian, going out of our way, begging them to do the right thing. And a majority of Americans, including Latino men, some Muslims, some Arabs, few right-wing Jews. There was a New York Times article that came out last week, which was just like dark humor. Arab and some Jews find solidarity in uniting for Trump. And I'm like, chickens for Colonel Sanders, halal and kosher chickens for Colonel Sanders. But the pain is going to come now, Mary. And it's not, I have no joy in saying I told you so, because people will suffer. But it's the hot stove approach. Like, what else can we do? Sometimes pain is the only way people learn. But my fear is, Mary, it reminds me of 2000, 2008. This is what it reminds me. This is what gives me some hope. 2000, 2008 was the George W. Bush administration, terrible administration, the horrible war on terror, Katrina, the financial crisis. People forget. He won in 2004, despite all the mistakes. It took 6 to 7 years of pain, Mary, for Americans to say, we want something different. We'll go for the Black Muslim. Joke, folks. And so,
who's not from the United States?
Last thing I'll say is my fear here, and I was talking to a few other friends, is it might be 6 to 7 years of pain. There's going to be pain. We'll find a way out of it, inshallah. We'll end on a hopeful note. But this is those years, Mary, times 10. This is those years times 10.
I think.
Sorry for that. I just wanted to give you a landscape of where we are. I hope that was useful.
No, it's very useful. It's incalculable. Listen, we don't get anywhere if we. Thank you, Joyce, and to everybody who's donating. We promise you, it's all going to very good causes. It's just helping us grow and get our message out. We do anybody any favors by lying, by sugarcoating, by finding silver linings that don't exist. This isn't about demoralizing people. That's what Donald and the right want to do. But we cannot do what we need to do if we don't have all of the information and assess what's really going on here, right? I have a question. It is like tying our hands behind our backs and blindfolding us. Go ahead, Brian.
My question is to all of those who voted for Donald Trump, what the hell are you so damn angry about still? By God in
It's
heaven.
fascinating. It is so fascinating.
You might just want to relish that for a moment, but you're not, because you know damn well what's coming. You, sir, ma'am, you're going to be politically raw dogged. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to be hurtful. And the problem is, every time one of them, I had one of them say to me in a text, and how they got my number, I don't know. They go, well, the nice thing about a second term of Donald Trump is he won't have to care about you. And I sent back to him, I said, or you. That's what they failed to realize. It works. Donald Trump doesn't care. Donald Trump doesn't give a shit. Donald Trump cares about himself and staying out of prison. You know him better than anybody. Mary, and I'm sorry, I'm an old fart. I know, Norm, you'd like to claim that, but I know you're a young man, but it's where you watch. But I'm telling you, this is, I
am not a young man. But
and
anyway.
No, you're a vibrant young woman, and I am an old fart, and I have been voting since Reagan, and I can tell you it's never been worse. But do you have hope? You got to have hope. And the thing is, it's like that statement, on Twitter or X or shit or whatever they want to call it. I ain't leaving. I don't like bullies. I'm not going anywhere. I will be on other platforms. But the fact of the matter is, you angry people that won, you're counting on your bullying tactics to scare and intimidate people. And for some of us, baby, that just don't work. So,
Mary, can I ask you a quick question? Just very quickly, you and Brian and Norm, because I'm trying to see how you all are wrestling with this, if you don't mind. Going off of what you and Norm and Brian have said about the people who voted for Trump the second time, knowing full well what he was capable of, how do you feel, especially even in your own communities? Do you feel pity? Do you feel sadness? Do you feel rage? Do you want to help them? I'm curious. Like the first time around 2016, I'll be honest with you, I was very empathetic. I said, even though I'm like, it's clear he was terrible, maybe you were misinformed, maybe your lives were terrible. But 9 years on, Mary, after 4 years of his disastrous presidency, after what I think was an atrocious but winning campaign, even people in my own communities, I'm reminded of Batman Begins, the scene in the end where he's facing Ra's al Ghul and he goes, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you either.
Yeah.
I won't kill you. I don't have to save you either.
But I'm not cool. I don't want suffering on anyone. So I just want to ask where you all are.
Yeah. Norm, you want to start?
Yeah. I think I'm closer to where you are, Raj. At the same time, there are a lot of people who are just ignorant and are going to suffer badly. And I don't want to feel schadenfreude. I don't want to say, screw you. There are plenty of those who I'm happy to see suffer because they went into this knowingly. So we have to separate all of that out. That would be my perspective at the moment. And I also think, we want to recognize that there are going to be a lot of innocents, including those who are on our side, swept up in this. We don't want to take a position that all of them are going to go and that it's tough shit for everybody. We can't do that. Yep. We can't lose our humanity.
Yeah.
You Mary, or want me to go before you?
No, go ahead, Brian.
I am in it for my grandkids. So I'm here for the fight. So I have empathy towards those who don't understand and try to push them to understanding with vetted factual information. But at the same time, part of me, I got to tell you, it goes right back to one of my favorite comedians, and George Carlin, who said at some point in time, I just disconnected myself from humanity, and I'm here to watch and laugh because I have absolutely no faith that humanity can save itself. So I don't go that far. I do have faith that humanity can save itself, but I understand the disconnecting a little bit because that's the only way you can deal with people who are so diametrically opposed to what you believe. I put on my reporter's hat and ask why, and then continue to ask questions why in order to seek why it is that they think the way that they do so I can understand them. Understanding be the key component, but you can't, I can't hit them over the head with a blunt instrument no matter how much I want to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reason I wrote my first book, what's it called? Too Much and Never Enough. Sorry. I think the subtitle is quite prescient, don't you? How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man, is because just besides the fact that the results of the 2016 election felled me, I did think that there was a lot people still didn't know, and in 2020, I wanted people to have as much information as possible about Donald that they did not yet have. Now here we are, and I now am in this position that everybody knows what they need to know, and we talked about this last week. Who he is, that's not a conversation anymore. Nobody cares. We know who he is.
Yeah.
So as for
I'm sorry. I just loved the way you deliver that line.
I mean, you should still read my book, of course. But, no, but seriously, I believe that I don't believe this is true. In every society, there's about 25 to 28% of the any population that is sort of the worst of the worst, and sort of one of the jobs of liberal democracy is to contain them, right? And with Donald's election and the controlling Congress and the House and the Senate, that 25 to 28% was represented by 100% of the federal government, and it grew, right? So now we're in a situation where we have to remind ourselves that like 22, 23% of the American electorate voted for him, right? So that's not a lot of people. And I'm with you guys. I am not going out of my way to help people who eyes wide open went into this. Because that's the 22% that is always, that's the Christian nationalists, that's the Nazis, that's the most misogynistic, those are the white supremacists. They need to be put back in their box as far as I'm concerned. However, as Norm said, we're in a situation now where a lot of people who voted for Donald through ignorance, through years of being lied to at every level, through years of being consistently hit every day with serious disinformation, are going to suffer along with a lot of other people. So it's like, again, we have to maintain our humanity. We have to maintain the higher ground in that regard. We should never want people who did something out of ignorance or a false sense of that they were doing the right thing to suffer. And also, wanting their suffering means that people who voted against what's happening right now are also going to suffer. We cannot go down that road. That's not who we are. If we go down that road, then we're as bad as our enemy is, honestly. So it's complicated because, listen, we have every right to be enraged. We have every right to be disappointed is not strong enough a word. Horrified, but what people chose to do. It's the people who chose it knowingly. Every single elected Republican, for example, every single person in Donald's inner circle, for example, that's the problem. I don't think it's worth right now focusing our attention on changing the minds of people who voted for Donald 3 times. But as we said at the very top of the show, there are millions and millions of people who are just disengaged. We need to find out why. And we need, as Waj said, Waj is our unpaid spokesperson for the channel because he does a much better job of promoting it than I do. As Waj said, there is a vacuum where information needs to be, like real information, serious conversations about who we are, where we are, what we want, and how to get there. And I can't think of any group of people who does it better than you guys. I really can't. And I'm not just saying that because I have the great honor of hosting the show on my channel. Because I say it because it's true. And we have all seem to have the ability to stare at things directly in the face, assess, and analyze without losing all sense of hope, even if we definitely feel like we got kicked in the teeth a lot. So we've got to find hope where we can. Go ahead, Watch.
Just to show you how low Republicans will go, just to put a little bow tie on it. 7 minutes ago, Andrew Desiderio, who is a senior congressional reporter for Punchbowl News, just reported that Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin is answering reporters' questions about Matt Gaetz by holding up a photo of Rachel Levine, an assistant HHS secretary who is trans, and asking reporters, "Did you ask Democratic senators about this?"
Yeah. But Ron
Rock and roll
Johnson,
show, baby.
Russian asset.
Yeah.
And here again, we can turn to why Merrick Garland did not prosecute Ron Johnson, who was deeply implicated in the insurrection, and of course others along the way, including prosecuting Matt Gaetz.
But why didn't they push back? The reporters push back at that. Watch enormous.
Oh, maybe they did.
Failed. We don't.
Did they?
We don't
Well,
why did even?
Hold
that
on.
raises a larger point here
Yeah.
before we go. We know that our mainstream media are going to be intimidated, that the Orban model is going to be applied to the Washington Post, to CNN and the others. We're already seeing them even trying to normalize a lot of this shit that's going on now. We need to make sure we have our own sources of information that are counter to and parallel to what the right-wing machine has built. That's why the Mary Trump channel is so important. It's why we all ought to make sure we support things like ProPublica, which are absolutely essential out there. Why we have to hope we can get our own billionaires to do what Sinclair Broadcasting has done. And, there was one little piece of good news today, which is that The Onion purchased InfoWars.
Ready? Check this out.
A joke that
What?
working together with the Sandy Hook families.
Norm, you anticipated me again. Look.
Yeah.
It's the best thing ever.
It is.
This is our timeline, folks. Our timeline is on Earth 3 that The Onion purchased InfoWars.
With the Sandy Hook families. And you know what? I mean, I'm not sure if this is how it works, Norm, but I'm so happy you brought that up because they bought it. So I think then the Sandy Hook families are going to get their money back because, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. But what I'm hoping The Onion will do is there are going to be lots of people, the same ignoramuses who voted for Trump, who watched InfoWars, who aren't going to know that it's changed.
No.
So they have to get somebody who looks just like Alex Jones on that channel to be putting out the exact opposite kind of stuff.
Do I have to put on weight and grow a mustache and beard? Because I'll go
Yell and eat chili.
Yeah.
My friend Bob Seska does a really good Alex Jones imitation.
There you go, good Bob.
Nothing like it.
Yeah, I love
Bob. Bob's amazing. And to that point, and to Norm's earlier point, there are a lot of amazing independent media outlets out there, like Deep State Radio, that hosts Norm's and Kavita's excellent podcast, Words Matter, and they have excellent programming over there. So, I think we need to have a conversation with other independent media people about where to go, how to support each other, because, and we'll end here. And let's keep the Onion thing in our head, because that actually is one of the few things that's made me smile recently. But to the point of,
I just want to be Bluto.
Capitulation, the anticipatory obedience. This is a quote from Mika Brzezinski on Morning Joe. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. And this is the only time I will say the word president in this context in a quote. Quote, "We have been especially thankful for kind words we have received from those who voted for President Trump." Unquote. Good for you. Don't support that stuff. And I think viewers are rewarding them appropriately. Ratings have tanked across the board. So anyway, yeah, we have our work cut out for us. But again, eyes wide open, everybody. So
Mary, you got to do it better. You have to, everyone watching right now, this is just the way how the algorithm gods work, folks. So everyone who's watching, 38,000 people, thank you for watching. Like this video. As if you can, spend 10 seconds, subscribe to Mary Trump. You just literally go there on YouTube and subscribe.
Doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, once this video comes out, which will be like in a minute after she posts it, share it on any platform. Blue Sky is great, by the way.
Yep.
Great engagement. Okay. Also, if you can, go and then subscribe and like to Brian's show, Danielle's show, Jen's show. And if you have some time, come over and subscribe to my Substack, The Left Hook.
And the
This is how
DSR
it
network.
grows. This is how
At
it grows.
Deep State Radio as well.
Deep State Radio.
But I want to mention something I just put in the chat for everybody. There's a site called Buffer, an app called Buffer. You can link Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, any of the ones that you want. And if you post on one, it shows up on all of them.
That's
great.
fantastic.
A tiny bit of work. I did it, and you follow it.
That idea.
Track you on all three as well. Buffer.
And I'll say this. One
That's
last thing.
fantastic.
I know you said we need our own billionaire. I'm going to push back. We have the people. We don't need our billionaires. If everyone chips in their $5 to $10 and does what they can, $20, $100, $1, everyone has, your own limits. We have the majority. So we don't need billionaires. We just need a community and building up our own Avengers, which I think is what's necessary, which I think is what will be built. And I hope you can join all of us. And thank you for all of your support.
Because we will be beholden to nobody but you guys. So anyway, sorry, Brian, we're very quickly.
Just want to remind everyone, it wasn't over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. So
there
keep
you go.
at it.
Sure.
All right, Brian, Norm, Waj, thank you so much. Thanks everybody watching. We'll see you next time. In the meantime, please stay safe and really be kind. We need that more than ever. Bye.